Hi, I'm Joshua Kemble, and this is my Vloggins. So, basically, this is the vlog where I talk about the process of my my personal creative projects. Full-time art director, and that's where I'm heading to on my commute. And so everybody who watches these vlogs already knows the deal and stuff. So, yesterday was awesome. It was a pretty incredible roundtable conversation where Jim Lujan, Gary Hodges, Corey Kerr, and Scott Cirkland and myself all had a really good conversation about the meaning of like clout and creative work and what it kind of inspires us and makes us feel good and interested in like in making creative work and what the meaning of awards are and stuff like that. And it was like a follow-up to a conversation that Jim and Corey had on Corey Kerr's channel, so you can check both of those out. I would recommend go to Corey Kerr's channel, check out his Indymation conversation with Jim Lujan, and then come back to my channel and check out Artcasters last night. They're both, I think, a really good pair of conversations. And the thing I like about that whole crew of people is I like creatives that are constantly working on their own projects, but also creators that tend to have a positivity and a more positive outlook on what they're going to achieve, what they're going to accomplish, and people who can kind of stay in the field and like stay positive and keep fighting the good fight to try to get eyeballs on their work, and yet maintain their integrity. And I feel like that's a good panel of people within that realm, and it really encourages me to continue going with my own creative projects and stuff. So selfishly, it was fun. The other thing is they're all really funny people and fun to hang out with and stuff like that. So I highly encourage everybody to check that out. That was last night. I am heading to work. It's busier than ever. Picked up some donuts for my team, and basically, just trying to basically comprehend how we're gonna get all the work done that we need to get done. And then at the same time, like, I'm thinking about tonight. My goals today are to get home, do my exercise. We might go to a store and get Ben an iPad, because his old iPad is like stopping charging, and nowadays like a 7-year-old needs a good iPad. Plus there's a couple games on there that he really likes that we like to let him play every once in a while, so that's important, and that probably is going to happen tonight, so I'm excited about that. Other than that, I've just been thinking about, like, for my own personal progress, some stuff that really has hit home to me in the last few days. I often, as a creator, will find myself getting kind of like overwhelmed with like fear, and a lot of that stems from really good things. Like, I have a desire to impress and deliver on really good projects, to impress and deliver on creative work, to impress and succeed in making a really quality book, and more importantly, like, I really want to make a piece of art that is going to be good. Like, and it's hard to say, but it's like I think there is a line between making art that's necessarily sellable and art that is good. And I think that line, like, is something each person kind of draws on their own. But for me, like, my primary concern is to make a really good story. And I know good is like this arbitrary, hard to pin down word, but that's kind of one of my objectives when I'm approaching comics. Is like, I just want to make a really solid, good, compelling, important story, and not important in the sense of like 1 million people are following it or love it, but important in the sense that it will be impactful and make like an existential mark of some kind on the reader, and maybe make them consider issues, and better yet, maybe make them think about things a little differently than they did before they read the book. And that's something I like. That's one of my primary objectives, especially with 2 stories. Sometimes when I work on creative projects, I'll have a different objective, which is just to entertain, which is actually a huge, massively important thing for an artist to do, right? Because everybody needs entertainment. Life is full of enough sorrows and struggles that sometimes if you can get a laugh or get, just distract from daily struggles and daily life, it really can like help people kind of get through the day. And so I think there's a place for that, and it's really important, and I think sometimes that's my objective, and it might be my objective again depending on the book I'm working on. But when it comes to 2 stories, that's my primary objective. Now, let me explain where I'm heading with like this thing I've been thinking about. I go negative quite often, and without catching myself doing it. And I also am full of a lot of fear, to be honest. I will have moments where I'm like, with the book in particular, like I have a signing coming up at Pulp Fiction on the 14th, and I have fears about that, right? Like I worry that I'll show up and no one will show up, like that kind of stuff. Very small stuff. And luckily I've done these things long enough to realize that like I need to change my perspective on a lot of those things. Like the signing on the 14th is a really good example. Instead of looking at it like I've done this on the last 2 store signings I had, and one of them was really pretty successful, I would say, and then the other was like kind of not so successful. But instead of looking at it like, oh, I'm going to this thing to have said outcome, and then being disappointed if like the outcome doesn't fulfill itself or come to fruition the way I envisioned it, right? I've gotten a little better, and my point of bringing this up is it's something I think I actually need to get better at thinking at it more on it more like in the sense of like, on the 14th, regardless, this is going to be a good experience. It's going to be a positive experience. I can't see it not being. I get to go to my hometown. Well, I call it my hometown. It's where I went to college. Went to Cal State Long Beach. I love Long Beach as a city. I'm one of those nerds who, like, I lived there for so long that I'd frequent Alex's bar, hang out, like, watch a lot of indie bands. I liked going to the pier at night, like, in Long Beach, which is not the least shady thing, but I love that ocean area. It's not a very swimmable ocean in Long Beach, but it's a beautiful harbor, and like it's a beautiful city. It's one of my favorite cities in the world. And Pulp Fiction was a comic shop that I used to go to in Long Beach to get those deep cut graphic novels that like no other person carried. And so here's the thing, instead of looking at it like I'm going there to sell books, which I am, right? And or like looking at it with like some kind of objective, like I need to move this many books, which I do have an idea of the amount of books that I would like or anticipate to sell there. Instead of that, I think the better, more productive approach is like, look, like a lot of people take vacation days at their work, and they'll like, go to like the Grand Canyon or to Yosemite and like kind of de-stress and relax and absorb beauty, and that's good. That's a good thing. I'm taking a day off, and I'm getting the opportunity to hang out in a really amazing comic book store in one of my favorite cities, and try to get anyone new into my work. And I am blessed, like, and this is my point, like, I need to remember this, and this is where my mind is going now with events like this, with LA Comic-Con, which I decided on LA Comic-Con between Long Beach and LA. Their organizers were just way more receptive, and so I think I'm aiming to table at LA Comic-Con. Payments in, agreement is filled out. So hopefully that means it's going to happen. We'll see once I get like the specifics on like the table number and stuff like that. But I've done all the due diligence steps to make that happen. My point is, I have been at conventions. Like I haven't convention in a long time, but I remember when I used to do conventions, one of the most disheartening things is I would be like having a blast at the convention, like meeting people, like selling books. And I would almost lose track of the fact that I was there just to promote my work, because you're surrounded by other creators, you're discovering new work. Like one of the coolest things about doing a comic convention or boothing at a comic convention is like it actually cues you into a bunch of amazing, independent, awesome artwork and comics, and it's like it also is cool because it's like a community thing where you're surrounded by your people. Like, you know, so many of us have like a mass interest in like comic books, independent culture, DIY, like these kind of things, and it's such a cool opportunity to have all these people in the same room feeling that like same spirit of unity and love for a certain thing. And in this case, it's comic books, which a lot of us cartoonists like dedicate our lives to. Anyhow, my point is, it's a cool experience. And I remember being at comic book conventions and then also running into indie creators who were like angry, who were negative, who were talking about their low sales numbers. They were furious. They kind of spent the whole convention like thinking about the lack of, as opposed to the providence of like what was happening. And that's what I'm getting at, is like I think that it's a self-fulfilling prophecy if you approach things from a negative perspective. And this is coming from somebody who, like, I struggle because I'm a skeptic, and I do tend to approach things from a negative perspective. And so this is something I consciously have to remind myself of, is not to do that, because of the fact that if you do that, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's kind of like, I learned this as a young man, right? Like if you ask a girl on a date, like this is back when I was single, right? And you lack confidence and you lack the belief that could actually happen, you've pretty much doomed yourself. Like 9 times out of 10, you're not going to get a yes on a date with that kind of approach. You have to have like a sense of positivity and confidence and an actual belief. Like you have to have an actual belief that it's possible, which is crazy. But I did approach, like my wife currently, when I asked her on a date, I approached her really confidently. I had a feeling that she would actually say yes. I had my doubts. I had moments of like negativity come to me, and I had to tell myself like, no, I can't approach somebody I like that I'd like to give me a shot, like for a potential romantic partnership, with all this doubt and negativity, because if you do that, you end up with a certain result, right? Like it doesn't benefit you or anyone else to have that attitude, and then it also becomes a really awkward exchange as well. So anyhow, I was only bringing that up as an example, but the point being, I think when we're doing events, I know it sucks because it's like you have to invest money, especially in like a convention, or time, right? Everything in life, it requires an investment, and when you've invested, it is hard to accept that some of your investment is out of your control, some of the return of your investment is out of your control, and kind of accept the risk and reward and also the joy of experience throughout that process. And so that's what I'm getting at, is like I have started to be better at enjoying things for what they are. Like, so even that convention, when if I have fear, or the store signing, right? Like if I have that fear creep in, or that negativity, or the dark realism, right? Like not realism. Like I feel like realism is not unhealthy, right? Like, to be aware of potential failures or flaws of systems or things is like a really good human trait. And to be delusional delusionally positive can be a really negative human trait, right? Like, I mean, just think about it in the sense of like a battle. Like, if you were to go into a battle and you have 2 soldiers and you're up against 500 soldiers, you're walking into a scenario where if you're so delusional with those 2 that you think you're going to win that battle, you're not going to win that battle, right? Now, if you're in a situation where you're 2 soldiers and you're surrounded by 600 people, maybe that delusion will help you survive longer. So delusion has its perks, but my point is, realism's great because it can help you avoid situations like that where you can prepare. So you're like, okay, I'm not going to go into this battle with 2 people. I need at least this many people to like, hey, we only have 2 people. It's a long shot. Here's going to be our strategy, right? Like, you can strategize. It's really helpful to be a realist, but not to be like a dark realist, meaning like don't put a dark spin on reality, because that's just as disingenuous as putting like a positive spin on all reality, which is disingenuous too. Just look at things for what they are, but with an optimistic outlook, because at the end of the day, like, life is full of experience. We're all on this rock, like, very temporarily, right? And so if we approach every experience as some other crappy thing that's like being handed to us, or like another thing or another failure or whatever it is, if we start doing that like list-based thinking, it really leads to like a negative life. And I've seen this with my grandparents. Like, I had 2 grandpas, right? Like my mom's side and my dad's side. And they had polar opposite kind of approaches to aging and kind of getting older. One of them, as he started, losing function of things, because that happens as you get older, right? And your grandpa age. These things happen. Life is hard. One of my grandparents approached it with just vigor. Like, he would go to like the old, there was like a senior center in our city, and he would go there and he would rock bingo, and he was positive and he was happy. And what's weird is he had all the reason in the world to be not happy. I mean, a lot of his body was like not where it was. He had had strokes. He had lost function in part of his hands. Like, there's a bunch of things that he could have looked at and been like, man, life is negative. This is terrible. But he approached it with vigor and love and enjoyed his life and enjoyed meeting other people his age. And, he lived a pretty good life. And by the time he passed away, I don't think he was like full of a ton of regrets. Like, I think he was pretty positive in his life. He was sure of his faith. That's helpful too. But it's like he also just had a good outlook. Like, he looked at things from an abundance mindset, and not like in this viewpoint where like everyone's vying for resources on the lifeboat, and so you got to fight and get your resources. So I try to keep that in mind, because on the other hand, I had another grandparent who he had the polar opposite approach to life, and a polar opposite kind of outlook. And he was very grumpy about life, about his aging. He felt like he did a lot of list-based thinking. So when something would happen, he'd be like, it's another thing, and it ruined him. Like, and he was very unhappy by the time he left this world. Same faith, held his faith, but his outlook was from that of like lacking rather than abundance, and realizing that like life is giving you opportunities, it's giving you provisions, that there are things that that you can look at from a negative perspective, or experiences that you can also just kind of sit back and go, hey, you know, like, on the plus side, this is an experience. I'm not saying we need to like walk around and be like happy all the time. That would be obnoxious and kind of irritating. But I'm just saying, like, for me, I've realized, you know, that's something I really need to refine and work on for myself. And so, like, the way I've been approaching these signings has made it a very fun experience, whether it was a success or a failure. And I think it's partially because I'm looking at it as an opportunity for experience. And so in this sense, like the 14th, let's say I sit at, I don't think this is going to happen because it's Long Beach. It's a really popular comic shop. And honestly, there's a lot of comic folks in Long Beach. So I'm guessing I'll probably make pretty good sales numbers at this signing at Pulp Fiction in Long Beach on the 14th. But like, let's just assume the worst for a second. Like, right? Let's say I drive all the way to Long Beach, which is very far from where I live now. Not crazy far, but, you know, it's quite a few hours. I've taken vacation time to do that on a Wednesday because it's a good day to do it. Let's say I go there and hypothetically, like, no one shows up, or everyone shows up and just completely hates my comic. Like, they don't want to buy it. They don't like auto-bio stuff, or they do like auto-bio stuff, right? And even more nightmarishly, they're just like, oh, but we don't like your auto-bio stuff, right? I'm just saying, like, worst nightmare kind of scenarios, right? So I sit there all day like an idiot. I've taken time off. I'm stuck in a store, and I make nothing. Like, I make nothing. I sell nothing. I get no one invested in my comic, which I doubt is going to happen. That's the thing I was saying about, like, even beware of, like, dark realism, because that's where even that line of thinking is, right? It's not realistic. That's not how it will go. But sometimes I think to have a positive outlook, it is good to look at, like, what's the worst that could happen, and is that so bad? And so that's what I'm kind of walking through here. It's so I look at that scenario and I'm like, hey, you know, if that's the worst that happens, on a plus side, I get to go back to my the town of my alma mater. I love Long Beach. I love that city. I get to hang out in a cool comic shop for a day. It's one of my favorite comic stores. Outside of signings, I don't get to go to comic stores very often. And it's partially because I'm just busy making comics. So that's cool. I mean, it's an opportunity to, like, check out a comic store and maybe get, like, more versed and find out about other cool comics that are out. Because I have had that happen. It's also an opportunity for me to, like, maybe get Ben something really cool. Because my son Ben is really into, like, Sonic the Hedgehog comics. I think it's IDW's running them. But they're so good. They're just so good. For him, like, he loves Sonic. And then the art's pretty darn good. Like, they're actually pretty well crafted kids comics. So there. So, like, worst case scenario, you know, especially if I maintain a positive outlook while being there, is I get to start a relationship, not a, like, long-term relationship or anything like that, but have a human interaction with some people, like the store owners of that store. I get to actually hang out and get to know them a little better. I get to see the inner life of, like, the kind of thing that's pushing the product that I love. So it's like, you know, these are the dealers of the thing that we all love and we all make, right? So that's cool. It's like I'm gonna get a window into that world. I'm gonna get to meet other people. I guarantee it's a Wednesday at a comic shop in a major city. You know, there's gonna be people there, and I'm gonna get to have the opportunity to hopefully learn more about them. And also, I have to remember that it's not about me, right? Like, even a signing that I'm going to is about the people at that shop. So it's like, what can I do for that shop? What can I do for those people? If you approach things from that perspective, I just think it makes life more bearable. I think it makes successes way more possible. And it honestly just improves your outlook. So that's what I meant by, like, lately I've just been thinking about how quite often in my life not quite often, I shouldn't say quite often. Sometimes in my life, I will find myself allowing fear of failure, fear of financial loss, fear of inadequacy, like fear, like typical fears that like most human beings have, control my life. And the times that I've done that have never been rewarding. They've never led to anything that didn't lead to more fear and negativity. Like, it's like when you go negative, it's a hole that has just no bottom to it. It's a glass with no bottom. Like, and you can just pour fear and anger, and it just gets more and more full, and it has no base to set the water or whatever you're filling it with that it can start on till it's full and then done. Like, there is no end to that well. It's a well you can just keep, like, the old wells where you'd like take a bucket, you put your rope down, and like you put the bucket down at the bottom of the well. There is no bottom to that well, so you're going to be just cranking that bucket and just dipping deeper and deeper into fear and negativity. It's just, there's no end to that. And that's been my experience. I know it sounds like a truism or a trope, but that's been my experience. So I think as artists, I think that we're familiar with confronting fear, overcoming fear when it comes to our own creative work. Like everyone, when they start drawing, I've seen this with kids, has a fear of failure, right? Everyone, when they start anything, has a fear of failure. And part of doing the thing or getting any good at the thing has a lot to do with how well you deal with that. Like, do you give into the fear, give up, and never improve? Or do you face the fear and just go like, you know what? Look at other people. There's other people who can draw. If other people can draw, I can draw, right? If other people can dribble a basketball, I can dribble a basketball. Like, little things, every little thing we learn has something to do with, like, kind of confronting and facing fear and then overcoming it. And part of how we overcome it is a positive outlook, a can-do kind of spirit, and also like an abundance mindset where you're looking at all the provisions and beauty of what's provided in your life, right? It's so easy for all of us to look at things we don't have. I'm not a wealthy man. My wife and I are really fortunate and blessed to have a house, but we've had to live in a house with like a swamp cooler for years. And by the way, we're lucky to have that swamp cooler because there's a lot of people who live in houses or apartments that have absolutely no AC. I've been one of those people. You have no air, and you're maybe getting like a cheap box fan, or maybe you just don't even have a place to live. Point being, I'm very lucky. I'm not complaining here. I'm just using this as an example. We've had to live with this swamp cooler, so we're having to, we finally have saved up enough. We're going to be getting our air conditioning done and fixed so that we can actually use it without, it running up our electric bill to an extent we can't afford. And so next week, we're going to have someone actually fix it. But it's a substantial amount of money we have to put down to make that happen. And that's a little nerve-wracking for me, because I worry about finances. I think about, like, providing for my family. Like, will Ben be safe? Will, my wife be okay? Like, all of that. Here's the thing. It's really easy to go negative. It's easy to go negative in the sense of, like, I could look at other people around me and other people who have air conditioning be like, well, how come they have air conditioning? Or look at other people who have more resources and can do these things quicker and feel like, well, how come that can't be me, right? It's so easy to do the compare and despair game. With my book, I feel like I've been making pretty good sales on it for an indie book. It's ranked okay on Amazon, and I'm happy about that. And I feel like I've made a good book, right? But it's easy to go negative with that and be like, well, how come this book isn't selling this? How come I didn't get this publisher? Like, it's an endless well you can draw from. I can even talk about myself. Like, I feel like I've been doing pretty good on the exercise route and getting my health back together. But I could also be like, how come I have genes that make me like not easily grow muscles? Or how come, I had these struggles like growing, how come I was, like, my point is, don't draw from the deep well that has no bottom. Like, draw from a good well, and a good well is full of water that will refresh you and fill you up and make you make more work, and will make life full of experiences, some of which will totally be bad, but we should be thankful for the experience in general. I know it's terrible, but it's like, we're on, like I said, we're on this rock temporarily. And so, like, honestly, any experience, like, I lost function in my left hand for like 2 months, and I didn't realize until I lost it. Luckily, I've gotten it back. I had a cortisone shot. I might eventually at some point need surgery on it, because I am noticing like pain returning to it, right? But I do remember how shocked I was when my left hand like wasn't working. To realize like how lucky I am to be able to play a guitar, how lucky I am to be able to hit shortcut keys on my keyboard, how lucky I am to be able to pick something up with this hand. Like, there's a lot of things that are like a hand where it's like you kind of forget how lucky you are to have a hand. I know this sounds really cheesy, but we are really lucky to have function and to have breath and to have air and to have wherever we live and wherever we're breathing and whatever we're doing. These are all really positive, good things, and we take them for granted sometimes and kind of forget. And then once they're gone, you kind of like go, oh, well, now I can't use my hand. Now I appreciate the hand that I've had this whole time, that could move, and now I really appreciate it because I don't have it. My point is like kind of getting to that trope of like I'm trying to appreciate things while I have them. I will say at the age I'm at, some of my fondest memories of early in the comics industry were doing things like Alternative Press Expo for the first time. When I first did that, I did terrible sales. I got better and better at it, conventioning and like, displaying stuff and learning all those hard lessons, a lot of which you can look up on YouTube now. So hopefully a lot of new artists don't have to like relearn those lessons. They can just check out like YouTube or check out online and stuff like that. But anyhow, my point is just that some of my fondest memories are from like some of the hardest times in my life. My wife and I used to have to share a studio apartment with no bedrooms. It was literally just a loft, kind of tiny little thing in one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in Long Beach. And we lived there for years and had to we shared like a twin bed, like a tiny little bed, and we're broke. And like some of my fondest memories of us are from those times. We were really blessed. I didn't see it at the time. I remember, especially at that era in my life, I looked at things from a non-abundance. I looked at things from an objective of like where I needed to go. I set goals, and I would think so much about the goal that I'd like miss the journey, right? And so my point is just like that's on my mind today, is just the need to focus on the journey and like the value of the journey, and also just looking at things as experiences, with the potential of learning and newness, and less of like a kind of self-serving, like, what can I get from this kind of mentality? Because I think that's where a lot of fear and negativity comes from, is like, when you approach every situation from a standpoint of like, what can this, like, a good example, when I have an interaction with someone I admire and I'm just enjoying a conversation, I have a much more positive interaction than if I have a conversation and I'm thinking like, well, what can I get from this, So anyhow, all right, I gotta get going. I'm gonna go to work, get these donuts to my team, and I hope you guys have a good day. I'm curious, like, how do you guys approach a new event or thing like that? And like, how do you deal with fear, like when it comes to being an artist or in life in general, and new situations and the potential of failure, or the potential of success? Like, how do you navigate that? I feel like the older I get, the more I realize, like, that is the way I'm describing to me, for myself, seems like the only way to approach new experiences and new situations, without, basically just being a really miserable, unhappy person. And so yeah, that's my take. I will see you guys on the next vlog, and if you haven't, hit the bell, hit subscribe, hit the like button, and make sure you leave a comment. And if you haven't yet, pick up 2 Stories, book 1, which is my graphic novel about faith and mental illness, handwritten, hand-lettered, hand-inked, and right now it's available on Amazon.com. 2 Stories, Joshua Kemble, Kemble. Look that up. You can get it for like about the price of a cup of coffee. So, all right, at least right now. I don't know if the sale will change or whatever. It's been interesting. All right, I'll talk to you guys on the next Vloggins, and appreciate you all. Appreciate all the subscribers. I appreciate the community on YouTube that's built up. And if I ever get to the point where I'm not appreciating you guys, let me know too, because that means I'm probably not approaching things from an abundance mindset. So yeah, all right, have a good day. Talk to you guys later.